What's the best case of instant karma you've witnessed? This a-hole cut into my lane, forcing me to brake hard the other week. I honked and he turned around in his car, while still driving, to flip me off. He didn't see the car in front of him stopping at a red light, and crashed into the car in front of him. I had a lot of fun telling the police what had happened. I love car karma. One time my dad was driving through a tunnel to get back from work. He was driving slower because it was snowing and extremely icy, and while it looked dry in the tunnel, it's pretty notorious for black ice. Well, this guy behind him is honking and flashing his lights while my dad is going a completely acceptable speed for the weather. The guy gets into the left lane and floors it into the tunnel. He hit a patch of black ice and immediately spun out and totaled his car. Miraculously, no other cars were damaged, but that guy was lucky he walked away with no injuries. I was at a touristy place at the top of a big cliff. People were hanging around at the top, just enjoying the view, and this one guy was eating a sandwich while staring at his phone. After he was done, he couldn't be bothered to find a trash can, so he went to throw the sandwich wrappings off the cliff, but he got his hands confused and hurled his phone off the cliff instead. Two of my friends and I were playing Monopoly sometime around freshman year of high school. One of my friends owned all the railroads, meaning any player who landed on a railroad would pay him 200. The entire game felt like I was just moving my token from railroad to railroad, paying my friend each time, having no opportunity to buy properties, and getting super frustrated. In reality, it was probably only 2 or 3 times. On my next roll, I quickly calculate which space I was going to land on as I start to move my token, and lo and behold, I was going to land on another fucking railroad. I gracefully slide, cheat, past the railroad, and plop my piece on the next space. Chance. Chance card reads something as follows: move token to nearest railroad. Pay owner twice the amount. I lost my shit. Pedestrian crossing the street. Everyone stops for him, except one guy in the last lane blasts his horn and blows through the intersection, nearly running the pedestrian over. There was an unmarked police car right behind him that immediately pulled him over. As a pedestrian who uses the crosswalk correctly, and yet has this happen to me every day, this brings a glistening tear of justice to my eye. Was working at a trampoline park which had 2 different dodgeball areas. One for kids 12 and under, another for 13 and up. Annoying little shit of a kid kept trying to sneak into the 13 and up game, running around, breaking rules, and basically being a pain. We couldn't really do much about it. Eventually I just let him sneak on, and not a moment later he got smacked beautifully in the face with a rubber ball. Actually sent him flying back a couple feet. He wasn't so keen to play after that. I kind of feel bad for the kids that are 12 but all their friends are 13. A few years back, I was traveling on the interstate to meet some friends who attended a different college than I did for a weekend. On the way there, I'm in the right-hand lane, minding my own business, when a car tries to cut me off. No big deal, right? Except she ended up clipping my bumper and running me off the road with her driving speeds of 80-85 miles per hour. Other driver keeps on going along her merry way while I'm on the shoulder attempting to contact the local police to report an accident. 5 minutes later, a state trooper pulls up behind me and asks what happened. I explain the situation, describe the other vehicle, including a partial license plate number, and he asked if my car was still drivable. After confirming that it was, he said, "Just follow me up to this next exit." I got a call about a driver who is out of gas and needs assistance. We pull up to the next exit just shy of a gas station. Sure enough, it was the girl who was the other party in my hit and run. She tried to deny anything occurred until the trooper looked at my front bumper damage and her back end damage, assessed the paint colors matched, etc. Bonus is that her plate had the partial information I had gathered as she sped away. Turns out, girl has no insurance and no license. Gets hauled off to jail on a hit and run, all because she couldn't slow her ass down and be a decent driver. I just walked into a crowded bar with my friend back when we were in our early 20s. Make our way around the entrance handrails and bam, this dude smashes his shoulder into mine, knocking me back. Thinking it was just an accident caused by a crowded bar, I start to recover, and this dude throws his shoulder into me again. Before I can even begin to react to the second more aggressive hit, this monstrosity of a bouncer watching the whole things go down, picks the guy up and literally throws him out the exit doors. It all happened in a matter of 5 seconds. I don't think any other person in that bar, nor my friend, even saw it go down. Maybe not instant but close enough. Working as a medic a long time ago and get called for a leg injury at a Friday night soccer game. We get there and determine it's most likely a torn ACL. Painful but basically any hospital can handle, and it's not really a priority. So we explain to the patient it will probably be faster and a lot cheaper if she just wants to have someone else drive her to the hospital that's literally around the block. Here comes the white knight into our story. This guy who's friend zone explained how he's a medical student going for his doctorate and she needs to go to the local trauma center, which is a good 30-minute drive. We explain no, we'll go to the local, they can handle it. However, the patient pulls the nastiest look at us and says her friend knows more than my partner and I because he's actually studying medicine and we're just ambulance drivers. My partner and I give each other that look. An ACL tear isn't priority for trauma center, especially on a Friday night. Drunk driving crashes and gunshot wounds are gonna be taking up the air there. We oblige the request with documented protest. The friend rides with us. We make him ride up front. He explains how the surgeon there is his friend and she'll get seen right away. We roll in, and sure enough there's about a dozen ambulance crews trying to unload patients in much worse cases than ours. We get to Tridge after about 15 minutes, and the RSN tells us to put her in the waiting room. She starts crying bloody murder. Cherry on top, she asks her friend to do something. He calls his buddy surgeon down. Turns out not his buddy, but one of his teachers who proceeds to yell at him about thinking that an ACL tear needs to come to a trauma center. She could have been in and out the hospital in an hour if she had listened to us. My older sister and I didn't get along well growing up. One day we were both on a city bus on our way home. As we approached our stop, I got up and moved toward the door. As it opened, my sister aggressively shoved past me to get off first. The second she stepped off, she was nailed full on by seagull poop. This was over 50 years ago and it still makes me smile. This was over 50 years ago and it still makes me smile. Justice is ageless and eternal. During my lunch break at work a few years ago, I ran over to this convenience store that sold a few deli items and also had a lunch of the day special. That day it was spaghetti. I walked into the store and headed to the back to the coolers to grab a drink, and I start walking over to the line that was formed to grab a lunch. This older woman, who was talking to a woman not even close to the line, saw me walking and literally strong-armed me to get in front of me. She full on shoulder checked me. The cashier saw it, looked at me, and I just shook my head as if to not call her out on it. She gets 2 orders of spaghetti. They come in a styrofoam compartment tray. She walked towards the door and someone comes in that she knows, so she's saying hi. I pay for my food and I'm out the door. As I'm walking to my truck, I hear a loud ooh off. I turn around and this woman is planked on the ground with spaghetti and meat sauce all over her white shirt. That is one satisfying image. You should have smiled and winked at her. Driving in the slow lane, guy rushes up to my bumper and starts tailgating me, honked his horn and flashed his lights. When I didn't move, he went around me. Once he passed my car, so did a state trooper with his lights on. Another time, when driving to work, car starts tailgating me, but doing the speed up slow down thing. I look in my rearview mirror and see a girl in the passenger seat yell at him. The car speeds up to my bumper one more time. I look in my rearview getting ready to flip him off. Then I see the girl absolutely bitch slap the guy driving. He backed off and stopped tailgating me. That girl is a legend. Worked at a convenience store several years ago. Check my other posts for a couple of funny stories. This was back before gas pumps were all either card at the pump or prepay. It was about 7 AM and the morning rush was on. A suspicious fella pulled up to our farthest away pump and positioned his car so that it was not easily visible from the building. This is a dead giveaway for someone who is going to drive off without paying. My manager and I watch this guy as we are ringing up other customers, and sure enough, when he filled up, he gets in the car and peels out, making a run for the road. He leaves a lot via a small access road that ends at a traffic intersection. Red light. He stops for the light, then decides he needs to get the hell out of Dodge and guns it again through the red light. When he does, he brakes his drive shaft. Car coasts to a stop right in the middle of the intersection. But wait, there's more. Guy walks back into the store and asks if he can use our phone because his car breaks down. My manager says sure, after you pay for the gas you just stole. Guy gets all indignant I didn't steal no motherfucking gas. Getting more and more agitated and confrontational. Just then 2 police officers walk in. Now these are 2 lady cops, both in their late 50s early 60s that usually are stationed at the local high schools, but always stop in for a coffee and a pastry. These ladies are the nicest people you'd ever meet, always with smiles on their faces. As soon as they turn the corner after entering, they see the guy getting into it with my manager. Their demeanors changed in an instant, going from kindly grandmother to "I'm going to kick your fucking teeth in microseconds." They manhandle this guy away from my manager, push him up against the wall, cuff him and stuff him. You know how you always think to yourself, why is there never a cop around when you need one? This time there was. I was once verbally assaulted by a guy at a gas station who decided I was a lesbian. I'm not. I just had an HRC sticker on my car and I tend to wear a lot of flannel. He decided he didn't like that I was a lesbian and decided to rant and rave and yell at me about what an affront to humanity I am. I probably am, but not because I sleep with women. I decided to ignore him and just get in my car. Inside the gas station were 3 cops. I had waved at them while filling up my drink and wished them a nice Memorial Day weekend. The angry homophobe also didn't like that I was ignoring him instead of crying, I guess, yelling back at him. That is more my usual MO, but like I said, I knew there were cops inside, and I didn't want them to pick me up for whatever reason. Angry man slammed both his hands hard enough on my little car to make the whole thing rock. The 3 cops bum rushed him, pinned him to the ground, and had him in cuffs in less than 15 seconds. It was fantastic. In high school had a kid punch me for like no reason. I would have punched him back, but the principal and the resource officer had literally just walked around the corner and saw it. They walk up and ask the other kids, "Did the lightning count 1 provoke Bob here?" Kids shook their heads. "Did the lightning count 1 strike Bob before just now?" Kids shook their heads. Resource officer cuffed Bob and took him to the office. He was a multiple offender and this was the last straw. He was expelled and we never saw him again. I was waiting tables at a restaurant in Texas and these 3 obnoxious women were complaining about a free appetizer they'd gotten plus the drinks, etc. Just complaining on and on. I didn't bother discounting anything else for them because their complaints weren't really founded and they were rude. They stiffed me on the tip, head, and, to add insult to injury, dumped what little was left in their drinks and salsa cups, chips, Quest, etc. all over the table. It was a pretty big mess and would take several towels to soak up. Nice. I saw the mess and walked away, only to see one of them come back in, rush over the table, and pick up her phone. A phone she definitely did not have in a waterproof case. She wiped it on her pants, so I know it got all wet. I didn't mind cleaning up after them so much after that. I just wish I had found the phone first. I would have made her pick it up to get it back. Who I would have been tempted to say something to her. I fucking hate people who complain over nothing and then take it out on the servers. FK those engorged, slimy bad turds. A few years ago now, there were terrible gales of wind in my town. Like they would be pushing you down the street at times. At the place I worked at, there seemed to be a funnel effect due to the size of the building and narrow streets which made the wind even stronger, to the point you could almost lean backwards as you walked, which you had to do to stop yourself from being pushed forward. Well, one time I came out of work, walked down the road in the strong winds to the corner where there was an adjacent road, and the wind picked up something crazy and practically fired me out around the corner. Unbeknownst to me, there was a old woman coming the other way who saw me just randomly fly out from around the corner and looked at me like I was a prize idiot just messing around. I looked back to see her reach this corner where the wind was still blowing strong and it sent her flying out into the road. Luckily nothing was coming at the time, but it was very much a young man, don't act like that. She gets to corner and wind blows. Arg. One time I went to a museum slash showroom and me and my mother went to go get food. I went to grab and reserve a table. So I sat down while my mom went to go get some food. Then this one guy comes and starts trying to take the other chair at table. So I tell him that there's someone sitting there, but he doesn't listen and takes it away anyway. At the time I was still too little to really do anything about it. So I go and grab a chair from a unoccupied table. Then I see the guy sit down in the chair with his food. When the guy sat down, the chair broke from under him, making him fall on his back, also spilling his food over himself. I've posted this one before, but the memory always makes me laugh. I was walking to the store with a friend when we were 13. We heard someone yelling at us and turned around to see some kid about 50 feet away. He was yelling and calling us F words and every other homophobic word you know at that age. As we started to walk over to confront him, he did a 180 and started running while turning. Well, he spun around and ran face first into a tree and hit it hard enough that the kid fell to the ground from the impact. He laid there for a few seconds because he was dazed. We couldn't stop laughing, and hopefully that was enough embarrassment for him to learn a lesson. This happened to me yesterday. There was this cute flamingo Onishi pajamas that I had my eye on for weeks, but the only sizes were extra small and small. They run small, so I needed an extra large. I went to the store yesterday and this lady managed to find an extra large, but was lamenting that it was too big and needed a large. I dug through the racks and found a large and chased after her so I could give it to her. She was so happy. I walked away afterwards feeling sad that I couldn't find the Onishi in my size, but then the lady came up to me saying she was looking for me and gave me the extra large since now she had the large Onishi she wanted. I couldn't believe it. So we said thank you to each other and went on our way. The Onishi is adorable and so warm. It was on sale too. One day after school, me and a friend managed to catch the bus home, but a second friend of ours couldn't get on because the after school crowd was a bitch. We laughed at him as the bus drove off, leaving him stranded at the bus stop making mock angry gestures at us. Later on, the bus broke down in the middle of the highway and everyone had to wait for the next bus to come pick us up. Guess who was on the next bus? Yup, this time it was his turn to laugh at us idiots stranded on the side of the road. When I was a kid, about 9 or so, my dad and I were at the airport food court eating while waiting on our flight. My eyes were bigger than my stomach and I didn't touch my fries. Rather than throw them away, I asked some lady if she wanted them. Free, of course. When we get to the main lobby for our flight, lo and behold, who do we see? Yup, that same lady. She was in the main kiosk as a flight agent and she let us know she gave us a comp upgrade to business class. That was the first time I had ever flown business class. As a teacher, I get to experience instant karma daily. One that sticks out in particular, I had a student when I was teaching at a middle school who was loud, obnoxious and willing to do anything for attention. We had just finished an exam which required stapled papers in order to be turned in, and he kept hitting the stapler against his hand with it open. All I said was, hey, if you keep hitting that stapler against your hand with it open, it probably won't end well for you. He responded with, I do this all the time. I've never been stabbed. Click. Student lets out the loudest scream I've ever heard. Bleeding. Crying. I'm laughing, on the inside hopefully, and sent him out to the office.